this is Okami. Hopefully everything comes in correctly. So, if you guys haven't already heard of this game was originally released for the PlayStation 2 in 2006. Was re-released on the Wii, the PS3, and then later in 2017 it was remastered for pretty much every modern console, including PC. This is the Switch version. All of the 2017 and later remasters are equally viable
Give me
for...
a sec too. Alright, now we should be good.
Okay, well, I'll start from the top. Okami is a game that was released in 2006 for the PlayStation 2 by what was then called Clover Studios, but many of the people who have come from Clover Studios, which is now defunct, have gone on to form Platinum Games. So if you know people like Hideki Kamiya, who directed the Bayonetta series, also directed this game, among other things. So it's a very well-loved game, even if it wasn't maybe as much of a critical success as it could have been. This particular version is the Switch version, but it's also been released on the Wii, PS3, and all modern consoles, including PC. All of the 2017 and later remasters are equally viable for speedrunning this category. There's no load differences, it's timed by in-game time, so lag doesn't matter. And all of them are a steady 30 FPS. So if you want to run this category, check out speedrun.com/okami. There's a link to our Discord, which has a lot of cool info. I'm not going to go too much into detail on anything else, but this is, again, new game category, which means we start from a new game as opposed to New Game Plus. The main difference there is just that New Game Plus, you can only run it on the PS3, basically, because on the PS3 there's a version-exclusive glitch that lets you do infinite jumps. But we're not going to be doing that, which actually I think makes the speedrun a lot more interesting, because you have to do a lot more different things to skip stuff. So, for time, we'll start in 3, 2, 1, go. Wait. That's something that can happen. The screen can transition before you actually hit the A button. Okay, this time. On go. 3, 2, 1, go. So, what you're going to see here is the reason why the 2017 versions work is because all of them can skip cutscenes in New Game, which is not possible on the PS2 or PS3 versions. So we're going to start by skipping 3 cutscenes, which are like about 17 minutes total or something. They're really long. And then right off the bat here we're going to load in, and we're going to do a tackle. So tackle gives us speed right away, which is why we're going to start off with it. And we're also going to be skipping a lot of text. That's Isun, he's our helper. He's a pint-sized swordsman, and he's a great character casually, but he does get in the way a lot here. So what you're going to see here is I'm going to be jumping into all of these cutscene triggers, because that lets me store my level of dash. So there's 2 elevated levels of speed that we can get. There's a green dash, which I had earlier, and that's 30% faster than normal walking. And then there's gold dash, which is another 30% faster than that. And the way you get gold dash is by going in green dash for 5 seconds, and you can get green dash just by tackling. So in order to maintain our level of like gold dash or green dash, we're going to be jumping into cutscenes and then jumping out of them, because when you land, your dash automatically gets restored. You're also going to see what I just did there is I got our first constellation. So in this game, one of the major mechanics is the celestial brush here. This lets us affect the screen by pausing the gameplay to actually draw on the screen. And there's a lot of techniques that revolve around that. The first technique we just got and just used is rejuvenation, which lets us restore missing or broken objects. But we're not going to be using that too much. It's only required in a couple places. This item here is the astral pouch. It's basically an extra life. We don't really need it, but we will get an extra life much later. We don't actually have an extra life right away. You'll see in the bottom left it says 0 next to the astral pouch icon. That means we need to fill it up with food in order to actually earn our extra life, and you need 200 points of food. But fortunately we get some free food a lot later. This area here is the Cave of Nagi. This is part of the tutorial area. The previous area was the River of the Heavens. So there's not much in this area, but we are going to be getting another brush power soon, which will be very handy. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can really do to skip the tutorial. But here we're going to rejuvenate the sword. And I'm just going to skip the cutscenes. All of these constellations represent a different, like, zodiac animal, and each of those zodiac animals comes alive. I'll just show this really quick. To form one of the brush gods who gives us the brush powers. So this is Tachigami, who gives us the power to slash things by just drawing a line through them, which is quite handy. So we're going to use that to escape from this cave here. Right here would be our first fight trigger, but we can skip it because we can just run around it, because a lot of the fight triggers in this game are too small, so we can actually avoid them by just going around. And there's not going to be another fight trigger down there that I'm going to skip past too. If it wasn't already apparent by the names of characters like our main wolf here, Amaterasu, the sun goddess, and Isun, our pint-sized swordsman helper, this game's story and characters and art draw a lot from Japanese Shinto mythology. So, if you happen to be familiar with that, you'll recognize some of the names here. And a lot of the storylines follow that too. So, what we skipped in the intro was that one of our major enemies here is Orochi, the eight-headed serpent, who's causing a lot of problems. We're not going to kill him because it's too slow, so we're just going to let everyone die, basically. Our main goal is to just defeat the King of Evil, who's the final boss. And we can do that without defeating Orochi, so we're not going to. So coming out here, this is the end of the tutorial, and this brings us to Kamiki Village, which is currently cursed. We have to cut down this peach. Don't really ask why, it's not that easy to explain. But now, Chris Kamiki is partially restored, but we need to do some work to fully restore it here. So right now, we can walk around, but everyone is turned to stone, and we need to depetrify them. That guy we're going to ignore for now, we're going to come back to him later. But we need to talk to 3 statues before Isun will let us realize our true power to actually restore the village. Because we can't just do it right away here. What in the world? I should mention, I'm playing in English right now. Normally I would be playing in Japanese because it's about a minute faster over the course of the run, despite the fact that we can skip most text. But I decided to play in English because there's a few funny lines and time isn't really too important right now. So now we're back to this guy here. This is Kamuso. This is the last time we'll be talking to him. We could go around the mountain here. Oh, messed it up. But we can skip it by doing some fun platforming. This trick is called uppy thingy. So this is something that'll come up a lot in this run, which is using platforming to do small or big time saves. Because the movement system in this game is very powerful. So this is going to be our first fight that we're actually going to do. There's 3 green imps here, and we can kill them all with 2 power slashes. And we can draw 1 power slash that hits all 3, although it does take all of our ink. When we run out of ink, we actually lose our ability to do brush powers, as well as our ability to have like dash speed, and to use our weapon that's on our back. That weapon is a type of divine instrument called a reflector, and this particular reflector is called Divine Retribution. There's a lot of different weapons you can get in this game that have like different properties and different power, but we're only going to be getting 3, because we're going to be skipping or ignoring most of the other ones since they don't help. Here we have to dig up these turnips, because this is Mushi's mom here. Mushi's that kid over there with the dog and the dragonfly. And basically we're being challenged to beat his dog in a contest of how many turnips we can dig up before Mushi's mom slaps us. So, just gotta dig up all 10, just by mashing the X button, and we can repeatedly slash the pot on her head to slow her down. So this is Mushi's dad, also known as the odd turnip. So now that we've returned that, we could do this much later, but it helps to do it now because it's convenient. It'll let us complete a quest later on. This here is Kushi. You'll notice I can't skip this cutscene yet. I have to wait until she talks. A lot of cutscenes in this game work this way, where you can't skip them until someone talks, which is kind of annoying. But then there's other cutscenes that you can skip normally without anyone talking, and then there's cutscenes you can't skip even if someone's talking. There's a lot of exceptions to cutscene skipping in this game. So Kushi's going to give us some alcohol, because she likes the way we look. Don't ask why. And we can't leave the village right now, because there's a big boulder in this way, and this guy's trying to move the boulder, but he's obviously too frail. So we're going to talk to him, but then there's some demons. just gonna kill all the demons. That enemy there, the red one, is actually another type of demon called Red Imp. They're basically the same as Green Imps, but they have a bit more health, and they have an instrument that they can use to block your standard attack. But we can just destroy the instrument with the Power Slash. So here Eason's going to tell us about Praise, which is basically a way of upgrading some of our attributes, namely our health, our number of ink pots, our number of extra lives, and the size of our wallet. So we're not going to be upgrading our health or number of lives, most likely, since we don't need those. But we will be upgrading our number of ink pots, because that does save time in a lot of places. And we'll also be upgrading our wallet once, because we actually need extra wallet space for some money later. This is Susanoo here. He's the legendary warrior, but he's also basically a fraud. So, yeah, we're just going to help him destroy the boulder here, since he can't do it by himself, since he's not really all that legendary. We're going to help him be more of a legend, since we are an actual god. So, unfortunately here, he doesn't want to train since he's out of alcohol, but fortunately we have alcohol. So we're going to bring him some alcohol. And now that he's drunk, we can help him destroy these dummies here. So you notice he can't do it by himself, but if we Power Slash it, we can. And then there's this rock here. Now we actually can't break this rock by ourselves, and neither can he. Exploding Implosion, yes. But with our combined power, we actually can break the rock. So Susanoo isn't a total fraud. There is some combined strength between us that makes us both stronger. Susanoo style, Exploding Implosion. That's not how it works, Susanoo. And now we can break the rock. Messed up my dash restore. Okay, so now we're going to be going into Shinshu Field. So this is the first main area, and unfortunately Shinshu Field is covered in a whole bunch of black caviar. So no one wants to eat that, so we're going to have to save the village, or the place. Now, the real way we're supposed to eliminate all of the black caviar, or evil aura, is we're supposed to bloom that tree. Unfortunately we can't do that right now, so we're gonna go get the ability to do that. You'll see these green scrolls flying around. These are unrequired battles. We're going to be avoiding any of those that we can. But sometimes they'll chase you, those scrolls, and they can get in your way. But that shouldn't happen for a while. So this next area is our first sort of like mini dungeon-like area. It's Hana Valley. This place is also cursed, but fortunately there's no black caviar, so we can walk around freely. So here we're going to see the first use of the very broken battle items in Okami. Okami's battle system is pretty good. It's not anything like a true Platinum action title, but it is quite good. Unfortunately, we have these very overpowered items like the Exorcism Slip I just used, which Exorcism Slips nuke every enemy on the field. And we can use them to end battles like that quickly. There's different sizes of them for doing more or less damage. The one we just used is the small version, and even that was enough to kill all those enemies, so you can imagine how strong the large Exorcism Slips are. But they're in limited supply, so we can't use them frivolously. So we won't have too many fights that we end quickly like that. They're just going to run past these enemy cherry blossoms here. And over here, there's this tablet here that was ruined by Bowser Jr. I mean, some evil imps, of course. And we're just going to fight them. This is going to be our first real instance of any RNG. There's not that much RNG in this run, but this is one case where we do have to worry about it. So this enemy in the back here is a yellow imp. Unfortunately, we have to wait for him to do the right attack to make himself vulnerable, and each time he does the wrong attack, we have to ink him again so that he goes into a different animation. Because otherwise he'll dig underground, which is bad. Like that. So unfortunately we're getting quite poor RNG here, but at least it lets me demonstrate this. Okay, that's the right attack. And that's the quick kill. Ideally he would do the backflip attack first, but you don't always get what you want. Welcome Critical Sid. Bork. Ah yes, that is something I had forgotten to mention until now. So, Right there I just used R3, pressing in the right analog stick to flip the camera behind Ami quickly. I'll do that a couple other times where I need to move the camera quickly behind me, or to point in a different direction. It's faster than just rotating the camera normally, since the camera rotation is pretty slow in this game. But anyway, we actually have a button that makes Ami Bork. It also brings up all the HUD, but the main purpose is to Bork. Thank you for the good luck, Sid. So this is the Guardian Sapling Bud. We need to bloom it to uncurse this area. But first we need to make it grow, and to do that we need a magical crystal that concentrates sunlight. But Susano's here, so we're gonna help him again. Roar! My blade thirsts for battle. Here goes nothing. Su! Oh, I messed it up. Sa! No! Susano! Okay, enough of that. This is our first example of ball pushing puzzles. In fact, this is our only example of ball pushing puzzles. The ball physics in this game are less than stellar, but hopefully I can do this quickly. The ball likes to go every which way. Oh, that was pretty good. We just need to push it in its place here. Yep. That was a solid ball push. It doesn't always go that smoothly. Oh yeah, this is definitely a very bizarre way to play Okami. But this game is very fun casually. I strongly encourage you guys to pick it up because it's so accessible. It's on basically every modern platform. It's not hard to run on PC, and it's only $20 MSRP, and it goes on sale often. Okay, so that constellation gives us the ability Bloom, which lets us make plants go alive, pretty much. Okay, so now that we've done that, there's going to be some fights here. We can actually skip them though. But I need to build up Gold Dash, because I need a lot of speed for this next part. Alright, so let's do this fight skip. And we got it. That one, it's pretty easy to mess up, but I managed to do it correctly. So that skips a repeat of the Yellow Imp fight, which, if you remember correctly, is quite RNG heavy, so we would much rather skip it than have to actually do it. So it's quite convenient that we can skip that one. That skip was actually discovered quite recently by a good friend, Giant Cookie Jar, who also runs this game. And then this is a repeat of the campfire fight, but we can just run around this one. We don't even have to do any fancy tricks, because they made the trigger too small. Look at that. Yeah, a big part of the, like, a lot of the skips and glitches in this game are more on the fault of the level designers rather than the game programmers. This game's programming is actually quite solid. There's not many, like, state bugs that we can abuse, but there are a whole lot of level geometry issues that we can make good use of. So we can just jump through the curse zone here to bloom this tree. And then we can skip the cutscene where the whole place gets restored and all the black caviar goes away. So now that we're out here, we're just going to buy some stuff. So this is our first instance of shopping. All we need right now is 2 of these. This is another very overpowered battle item called Steel Fist Sake. Basically, it something like doubles our attack power, which is incredibly useful for defeating enemies quickly. The benefit of Steel Fist Sake versus Exorcism Slips, which are a screen wipe, is that Steel Fist Sake is a lot cheaper and it's a lot more plentiful, so we can use it a lot more freely than Exorcism Slips. And a lot of Exorcism Slips won't take out enemies in one shot when we need them to, whereas Steel Fist Sake has a duration, so we can end fights quickly with only 1 Steel Fist Sake. This guy Mika here, we're going to use him to start a side quest, which is the wanted list. We don't actually want to do the side quest, but the nice thing is the tutorial for the side quest turns it to night, and we need it to be night for the next part. Here we have to fight some named enemies. This is Akuzo. That's actually a good one. That's the best enemy to get by like a fraction of a second. There's an example of text we can't skip. Alright. So we just need to end this fight quickly. Unfortunately, we ran out of ink, so we're going to be ink locked here. once again, we can't skip this text. This is an example of where you actually need to read, because the enemy you get there is random. So you need to be able to read its name and line it up with the correct name on the list. Fortunately, I've learned to recognize the names in Japanese, which is how I normally run this game. Here we're going to be swimming. You'll notice I'm mashing the jump button. Well, you might not notice that, but I am. And that lets me swim a bit faster, which lets me avoid drowning. That's going to come up in a couple other places in the run. This is a dead fish. It's a new kind of enemy. They're kind of annoying, but we did get a good spread here. So we need to get all of these guys lined up easily. And fortunately, we got a lucky spread here where they all spawn in the correct locations. The locations that enemies spawn in are random, but the actual enemies that spawn in are always predetermined. So we can know which enemies we'll be fighting, but we have to hope that they spawn in convenient places in a lot of cases. This is Tama. He's the pyrotechnic specialist, and obviously because he works with fireworks, we can only talk to him at night. And this gives us a new brush power, which is Cherry Bomb. So I'll skip this one since my donation incentive didn't get read, but I did donate for naming the Tepig in the Pokemon Black Run, which should be coming up soon, to name it Bakugami, and the god of the cherry bombs is named Bakugami, and he's a giant boar. So I thought that would have been thematically appropriate. So because it's night, these slips will actually chase us, but we avoided it. They have a bit of a weird range. It's not exactly obvious when they'll chase you and when they won't. Here we're going to go do something explicitly for later use, which is we need to set a fast travel point. Now we can't actually use fast travel, like the fast travel system in this game until later, but we are going to want to return here, so we can already set the fast travel point. Nice thing is these yellow imps, we no longer have to rely on RNG to fight them, because we can now break their armor with the cherry bomb. Hit that guy. There you go. So after this fight, that will clear up the land. That will open up a mermaid spring. That mermaid spring will be helpful later because we can teleport back to here. The fight I just did is actually was a devil gate. So there are the those like demon slips or the demon scrolls that can start battles, but there's also devil gates which can start battles, and the devil gates usually have some like consequence to them, whereas the demon scrolls are totally optional. Here we're actually going to be skipping a brush power that we're supposed to get. We're supposed to get an ability that lets us draw platforms on the water so that we can get up this ledge, but we can actually do a trick to completely skip that power, which is quite convenient because it takes like 4 minutes to get. We can just do a bit of a jump there. You normally can't jump out of the water, but if you go up against a corner, the game lets you jump, which is kind of weird. It's a bit of a glitch. We call it the corner glitch jump. So this is a God of Forest. This is the next major area, and you can see there's also a bunch of black caviar here. Fortunately, we can get to the Guardian Sapling here a lot quicker. I didn't quite explain it, but the Guardian Saplings are all extensions of the body of a wood sprite named Sakuya, who we would have seen in the opening cutscene. But we won't be seeing her in the run. We're supposed to bloom all of the saplings so that she can live, and we will end up doing that. But she also, in return, gets rid of the black caviar. Coming out here is going to be a scripted battle. So this is the first time we're going to meet a pretty well-liked character named Waka. He's sort of a mysterious character for most of the run, but the gist is he's on our side, but he doesn't want to look like he's on our side. So we're going to make use of that Steel Fist Sake if I can draw my cherry bombs. The brush recognition in this game can be kind of finicky. But yeah, you can see we can take him out in just 3 cherry bombs if we have the Steel Fist Sake, which makes him quite easy to defeat. So after that, we're just going to go over here and continue on. These are buds that we can open up with Bloom. They're sort of like treasure chests in that they contain items, but we don't need them. This is Kokari. He's just a boy of the forest. His dog got trapped in the next dungeon, so we want to get to the next dungeon, so we're going to help him fish. Now, he's not very clever, so he's fishing without a fishing line, but fortunately, Rejuvenation lets us restore things that are missing, including the fishing line. So we're going to have a fishing minigame here. That's the tutorial. Interesting. So basically we just draw a line between the rod and the fish, and then we have to pull it to shore. Now normally you're supposed to like measure how hard you're pushing the fishing rod in order to avoid like running out of stamina. But there's no chance of running out of stamina just in one of these minigames, so we never bother being conservative. This is the box crab. This is the least valuable fish. We can actually sell all of these fish, and they have different like values attached to them. The crab is the least valuable, so I consider it to indicate bad luck. But yeah, after the third round of fishing, we always get this fish, which is the one we're actually looking for. This is the giant salmon. Kokari makes some funny sounds too. So as it turns out, this salmon has swallowed the key to the dungeon. So we're gonna go there. If it wasn't already obvious, Okami is very much in the ilk of 3D Zeldas. And for that reason, its speedrun is also in the ilk of 3D Zeldas. So you're going to see us do a lot of sequence breaks that involve like getting around barriers we're not supposed to, and going out of bounds and such to like, get things early. And this is very much so of that flavor. So if you like 3D Zelda runs, you're going to see some of that here. So now that we have the key, we can open up this dungeon. You did see me there open up a bud to get another exorcism slip. We are going to be using more of those, but not too many more. At least not the small ones. Right here, if we ran forward in this intro area to this next dungeon, which is called Tsura Ruins, we would see a cutscene where the game does a huge camera pan, but we can skip it if I do this jump correctly. Yep, managed it. So that skips like a 15-second cutscene. That trick was also discovered by Giant Cookie Jar. And we're just going to move on to this next dungeon. Surprisingly, despite this being the first dungeon, it's actually one of the longest ones in the run because we don't have any good way of skipping a huge part of it. Whereas we can skip almost, like we have major skips for almost every other dungeon in the run. And we also skip 2 entire dungeons in this particular category. So here's another time where we're supposed to have Lily Pad, but we can skip it with this kind of jump. And then over here is going to be a new enemy. This is a Bud Ogre. And the gist is we need to attack him twice. He's going to hop in a direction, and then we're going to draw a cherry bomb there. And then Isen's going to give us a tutorial here on how to make him actually vulnerable, because we can't hurt him yet. So we're going to run out of ink here on purpose, and then I'm just going to refresh my ink using an ink upgrade. That's something we'll do a couple other times in the run. Basically, whenever you use praise to upgrade something, it refills it as well. Except obviously your wallet or your extra lives. So we can use that if we run out of ink. Normally when you run out of ink, it takes like 5 seconds to get it back for it to refill naturally. So we don't want to wait that long, and we often can't afford to wait that long. Here we're supposed to do another ball pushing puzzle, but we can skip it by just drawing a cherry bomb on the switch, because that works too. And we can get through the door before the cherry bomb blows up. And here's a fight with 2 Bud Ogres. And here we actually want to use another Steel Fist Sake, because we can't kill them quickly when there's 2 of them. So we're going to try and line everything up so we can hit both of them at once. And then I'm going to run out of ink here again, and we're going to use our next ink upgrade. And that should take them both out. So after this fight, some mushrooms will spawn, and then we're supposed to like use the sun to draw, like we're supposed to draw the sun to grow the mushrooms, which doesn't really make sense because mushrooms shouldn't grow in the sun. But that would make like giant platforms that we could use to get up there, but we can actually just skip that with this. Like so. So that's a pretty precise jump that was recently discovered, also by Giant Cookie Jar. He's a great glitch hunter. Then these next few segments we'll be going through mostly vanilla. Easton's going to sneeze here, which is going to cause this entire bridge to collapse. Despite the fact that we were already walking on it. I think it would have collapsed by now. But we're just going to run on through. And then coming up here is an interesting character, a recurring puzzle. This blockhead. If we tackle him, it reveals his weak points. And we just draw dots on the weak points and he dies. So... Huh? And for some reason that causes this key to spawn. Normally blockhead is used to block off like paths that you want to get through, but we don't actually want to go there. So we can just skip that. And we're just going to wall jump up this place because it's slow to use the logs. This is Lockjaw, he's our locked door, and we kill him by stabbing him through the eye with a key. So, very fun. This is a blue skull here, he'll chase us even though we're indoors. And then this is our last exorcism slip S that we're going to get. And we're just going to do a wall jump here to avoid that blue scroll. And here's another use of rejuvenation to restore this broken bridge. This is the triple devil gate room. We have to go through all 3 of these gates and complete the fights in order to progress, because we have to destroy these poison pots that are like corrupting the dungeon. Corrupting to the ruins, but the pots don't actually exist yet until we do this. Oh, very convenient. Oh, unfortunate. Just do that. That'll kill those guys. I'm gonna do that. Just gonna mash bark at the end of this fight. Oh, that restores your health. When you mash bark at the end of fights, oh, my real dog is barking right now. Please ignore that. Just gonna make sure I place everything correctly. Anyway, when you mash bark at the end of fights, they end about a second faster. For reasons that aren't exactly obvious. I actually didn't know about this until recently. That is not a great spread, but we'll make do. Sorry, I'll kill this guy manually. And if I draw a sun here, this will instantly grow these mushrooms. So, unfortunately, we have to watch this cutscene. And then those are the poison pots. So those don't exist until right now, which is pretty annoying. Technically, their hitboxes do exist, but only for Cherry Bomb. And if you blow them all up, it sort of soft-locks you. So we can power slash them all from down here. We don't even have to climb up the mushrooms. So the only reason we grow those mushrooms at all is just to get them to spawn. So after 3 cutscenes there, we can climb back down, and now that all of the poison water is gone, we can swim to an area of the dungeon that we had already seen but didn't go to. So we're just going to take a shortcut back, and that area is a central tree here. So in here is 3 of these cursed patches, so these we can restore with Bloom. But we, instead of like drawing a circle around them, we have to draw on them. And then after the 3rd cursed patch, we revive the constellation for the next brush god. and I forget this guy's name, but he gives us the power to vine. So basically, whenever you see one of these pink flowers, we can draw a line from it to Ami, and it'll pull us in. And we're going to actually be abusing that right here, because we can actually do a pretty tough skip here. I'm going to see if I can demonstrate this first try. But we can clip out of bounds here, and as it turns out, the final dungeon, or the final room in this dungeon is actually directly below this room. And if we can clip out of bounds, we can get to it. That might be a bit late. Yeah, that was a bit late. So let's try that again. If this takes too many tries, I'll not do it. This only technically saves 18 seconds, so I'm already losing time. But it's still fun to do. So what we're doing here is we're breaking the bounds of the brush camera. You can normally drag the brush camera around a little bit, but not too much. But if we do some precise movement, we can, oh no, I did it again. Okay, well, we're not going to demonstrate that today, because I don't want to try it for too long. But you can clip out of bounds there, and that saves a bunch of time doing this that we're about to do. Unfortunate that I didn't get to demonstrate it, because it is quite a cool skip. But I don't want to waste anyone's time. Then here we can skip a cutscene by angling the camera to spawn this flower early. Otherwise we'd be waiting there for a while. And here we're going to have to wait for our ink to refill. And then I'm just going to wait for my ink here, because otherwise I'd run out. And there we go. So normally, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to raise the lid off the top of the statue, and then you jump down into this room. But this room is actually physically located underneath the room where we get Vine, so we could just clip into it from above. Oh well. It's no big deal. There's still plenty of cool tricks left in the run that we can show off. This is going to be our first actual boss fight. Right in front of us here, you'll see a gold gate. These are sort of save points. They're like soft saves. They only last in the current session, and you go back to them if you die. We can use them, but I didn't go through that one because it gives some tutorial text and we don't want to see it. So this is a Spider Queen. She's pretty easy. She's a bit of a pushover. So we just draw 2 lines to her back, and then use 2 exorcism slips. And then she's dead. So we're going to cheese a lot of boss fights. There's only a couple boss fights that are really a challenge, but we have good strats for all of the rest. We're actually going to be skipping a lot of boss fights as well. So after that, we've rescued Kakari's dog, Ume, who we'll be seeing again later. Rather than going straight to the next area, we're going to go grab some stuff that we are going to need later. So this here is a... if I can actually draw a circle correctly. I cannot draw a circle correctly. There we go. This is an Infinity Stone. This gives us limitless ink for a short period of time. That'll come in handy much later, because there's actually not that many situations where we need unlimited ink. But there are a couple. And then up here is another fast travel point, and we have to actually get close to it for it to activate, so we're going to do that now. So, I got close to it. Don't need to see it. That's all I know. And then we're going to go to the next area. So, blocking off the next area is this river here. If we could just jump over this river, it would save about 3 minutes, but unfortunately there's no way to do that. It's just barely impossible. I tried everything. I really have tried everything. At least everything I could think of. It's quite difficult. Anyway, there's this minigame here where we're supposed to create this bridge with this log. This minigame is pretty much an auto-scroller, so you have to wait for these flowers to come by. But you can draw the vines faster or slower if you want to risk it. I just risked it. Yeah, the recognition isn't perfect in this game. Sometimes it's more or less lenient. I managed to just get this one in time and make sure it recognizes. There we go, and that's the last one. So after that, we're gonna Just barely avert going over a waterfall. Yes, we are playing the Switch version. Didn't see that question earlier. But all, like, the PS4, Xbox One, and PC versions are also equally viable for speedrunning this category. So now we've made it to the next area, Taka Pass, and Taka Pass also has the Black Caviar. That's a bit of a problem. But first, before then, we have to go do some shopping before we deal with the Black Caviar. And we can actually sell our fish here. So that gives us quite a bit of yen. So what we need is 4 of these meat feed bags, 2 medium exorcism slips, and 5 SFS. Just want to make sure I'm not messing up my money route. And then we could, there's the tree that we need to bloom is actually right above us. We could go bloom it now, but we actually can't because the game will stop you. It won't let you bloom the tree. If you try, it just won't work because we need to set some flags first. So here we're going to be meeting up with an old friend. This is the second Waka fight, and we're going to do it exactly the same as the first. The only difference between this fight and the previous one is actually that he has a bit more health, so we need 4 cherry bombs instead of 3. But fortunately we have more than 4 ink pots now, so I'm also going to use this opportunity to equip a weapon we got from defeating Spider Queen. It's another reflector, it's the same type of weapon, but it's just flat out a bit stronger. And it also gives us the ability to like draw dots on enemies and damage them, but we don't use that ability anymore because it's not very powerful. So this ability is called, or this weapon, I actually forgot its name. Nice. But like all of the weapons have cool names. The first one we had was Divine Retribution. This one, oh yeah, this one's Snarling Beast. There's a bunch of other weapons that we skip. A lot of them look really cool, so it's kind of sad that we skip them, but it wouldn't be fast. So there's the tree. So we're going to go ahead and get close to it. We can't actually bloom it from here. The bloom won't work if we try. So we just need to get close enough to it. I'm actually going to lower the camera to push it closer so that we can do this a bit faster than normal. Just save a fraction of a second there. And now the Black Caviar is gone. And we get a few praises from the tree. So then we're just going to head off to the next area. We're actually in a bit of an interesting situation here. For one of the next things that we need to do, we actually need to wait for it to turn night. But when you bloom the sapling, it actually sets the time of day so that there's 5.5 minutes left in the day. So what we need to do is make it to the next place we need to be in 5.5 minutes. However, time of day doesn't actually pass all the time. It doesn't pass when you're talking to someone, when you're in a battle, when you're in a menu, or the brush camera, like this brush camera. So what we need to do is actually minimize the time we're in those like time freezing states, because we actually have more than enough time to make it to the next area before nightfall. So really the only optimization here is all in menuing and stuff rather than in movement. Until the nightfall, of course. Unfortunately, I don't have any Franker Faces emotes, so that's not going to help anyone. But, not a big deal. So this is Kusa Village, or Kusanagi Village in the Japanese version. This place is cursed in a weird way, not the normal type of curse zone. This curse zone only drains our ink rather than our health. So we're going to try and get to where we need to go before we run out of ink, because it just wastes a bit of time. So we just need to get to the end here to see what's causing all this cursedness. And that's this lady here, Princess Fuse. So she's being harassed by some demons, so we're just going to nuke the demons, not feed them. This guy survives the nuke, so we just need to give him a couple extra hits. So now that we've defeated those demons, she's okay, and the village is saved. So we need to talk to her a couple times, because she actually has 8 minions, the Canine Warriors, the Satomi Canine Warriors, and each of them has a power orb, which is part of a key, which lets us get to the next dungeon. So we need to find all 8 of them, but there's only 5 in the village. I'll spoil that now. And one of them's right here. We need to feed them so that they'll actually go back to Fusei, because they're pretty shitty at being minions. They do not like to follow orders, so they're just going to be lazy until we feed them. Feeding animals is actually a thing you can do a lot in this game. There's a lot of animals that you can feed, and each of them has like their own type of food that they want. Like there's these birds here, but we're not going to do that. This is Mr. Bamboo. He has an adopted daughter named Kaguya, who's actually an alien. She was kidnapped by the Emperor of Japan, but we're not going to be saving her because it would be slow. So just remember that, because it's not going to be important. So this next dog was hiding in a giant stalk of bamboo. All of them are hiding in very inconvenient locations, so it's quite annoying. Some more Borks. This here is Sasano again. He's asleep. So we're just going to ignore him. And then this next dog is hiding in the dirt. Yeah, messed up my brush. There's a flower here that we can vine to. Some chickens up here as well for some reason. And this last dog is hiding in a cave all the way up here. Can I get a Franker Z for all these dogs? So yeah, we've rescued all 4 dogs that are in the village. Let's go back to Fusei. This thing floating around me, by the way, is a canine tracker. So this locates the dogs. Not that we need to know where they are, of course. Because as professional speedrunners, we already know. But look at that, there's another dog that we have not seen before. This is Tay, and Tay actually wants to fight us. There's actually 4 times in this run that we'll be fighting dogs. And all of them we fight the same way as we fight Waka, except they have more things to deal with. So all the dogs can like make themselves invulnerable if we get unlucky, and we got very lucky there. So he didn't do anything. We just killed him in 2 cherry bombs. But he could have done an attack that made him invincible, and then we would have needed for him to wait to finish that attack, which wasted a bit of time. So now that we've defeated Tay here, we can go leave. So Fusei knows where the other 3 dogs are, and they're not in the village, so we need to go find all 3 of them, battle them, and then we'll have the key to the next shrine, which will let us get the next ability. So this is what I call the dog quest. Yes, Franker Z. But first, before we go rescue the next dog, we're actually gonna go do some side questy things. So on our way here, we just ran straight to Kusa Village from the tree. But there's some other stuff we can do before the next thing we have to do. The first of which is we need to set yet another fast travel point. And unlike the one in Agata Forest, this one's more like the one in Shinchu Field, where we have a Devil Gate. And we need to go beat the Devil Gate before we'll have the fast travel point. This one's pretty easy though, it's just enemies we've seen before. Just a Bud Ogre and a Yellow Ant. Snarling Beast can technically help here a bit, but it doesn't make much of a difference based on the strats that we actually end up using. So after we set that fast travel point, we're going to go and do something that's actually not normally required in the run. This is something casually you could skip, but we can't skip it in the speedrun because this replaces something that's supposed to be required that we do skip. So there's this minigame here. These guys are called the Molsters. This is Molly, the leader of the Molsters. And they stole some guy's teacup. So we need to get that teacup back. Oh, he juked me. This is kind of RNG where they go, but it's not a huge problem. Depending on the pattern, you can see where they move under the ground. But you can grab things while you're moving, but I missed it there. So unfortunately, now that we have the teacup, we can't bark because when you have something in your mouth, you can't bark. So we just have to go barkless briefly. So now that we return this teacup to this guy who got it stolen, the Tea Master, he gave us a golden mushroom in the cutscene I skipped. That is also not what we need exactly, but this is a bit of a trading quest, so we will need that golden mushroom a bit later. And then here's the place that we had to get to before nightfall. This is the Cutter's house. So the Cutters are demons masquerading as humans, and under the cover of the moon, they turn back into demons. And we need to do that to fight them, and I am really messing up my cherry value. Yeah, drawing things correctly on a consistent basis while also being quick is kind of difficult. So now we just wait until nightfall, so this would be a good time for donations, because this usually takes about 20 to 30 seconds. I'm just gonna bork. So yeah, there are other things we could do to make out, like, to use this extra time that we have, but none of them are actually important for this category. So we don't do any of them. So this is Mrs. Cutter. We drag her into the moonlight, and then she turns into a regular enemy. This isn't even like a boss fight. These are just Crotengu. So we can kill them with an XM, and then we hit them to speed up the death animation. And the whole reason we did this is because these guys have kidnapped the daughter of the chief of the Sparrow clan, or a race of humanoid birds that run a bathhouse. So this is Chun. She has great background music. And we need to deliver her to Sasa Sanctuary. And this is Sasa Sanctuary. So normally we couldn't get into this place until we do this side quest. It would be nice if we could get in early, but none of the actual ways that we can do it are possible this early in the game. So unfortunately we have to rescue Chun. We have to actually help people, even though it's slow. We are not going to actually talk to the chief. We're just going to go to the hot spring, and the hot spring is missing water, so this is going to be a common theme. Whenever there's not water where there's supposed to be, we're actually supposed to do something about it, and unfortunately this time we can't skip it. This is going to be a digging minigame. So this is Mr. Bamboo. Don't ask why he's here, but we're just going to blast our way underground. We already know where to dig, but unfortunately we have to wait for him to actually come down before we can dig there. So we need to dig right here, so I'm just going to mash the dig button. And then as soon as he gets there, we can start digging for real. So this gets us our next brush power, and this is the first in sort of a series of brush powers with a common theme. This is going to be Water Spout. It looks like a bomb, but it's actually a jar filled with a snake. I wasn't lying. Okay, anyway. Now that we have water spout, we can draw a line from a source of water to something we want to apply the water to, and it'll cause the water to go that way. And we also have the ability to raise pillars of water in specific locations whenever there's like a dark spot, but that's not too important. So we're going to use water spout to fill up this giant bamboo fountain, which hits a switch, which lets us access the back area of Sasa Sanctuary. Very convoluted security mechanisms, but it's convenient for us. And so, we have an objective here, which is to talk to this dog. But this guy happens to be really upset, so we're going to talk to him, and then just leave. So now that we have the canine tracker active, we know that there's a dog here. And he happens to be hiding in a piece of bamboo, just like one of the dogs earlier. So we're gonna fight him. Pick a fight. And we're gonna fight him the same way, but this time, this is Take. He has a bit more attacks and more health than Te. So hopefully we don't get unlucky here. And we got quite lucky there. Managed to combo him out. So normally he could do more of the stuff that I was describing earlier, like making himself invincible, but he can also jump around a lot, which wastes time. And then we're just gonna leave. So now we're supposed to go get to those other 2 dogs that are left. And you might actually know where they are, because we've seen some dogs earlier. And we know where those dogs are. So the thing is, we don't actually want to do that right now, because now that we have water spout, we actually have all we need to continue on for a fair portion of the story before the game finally rechecks whether we have certain abilities that we're supposed to have gotten by then. So instead of going to those other 2 dogs, we're actually gonna go back to Taka Pass and head to another area that we haven't seen before, but technically could have already gone, which is City Checkpoint. So that City Checkpoint happens to be in this direction. We just have to make sure we don't run into any of these scrolls. Nope. And this is City Checkpoint. So City Checkpoint, we're actually supposed to be able to access this area, but we're not supposed to be able to cross it. You see that giant bridge? You're supposed to lower that bridge so that you can cross this huge river. And to lower the bridge, you need the fire equivalent of water spout, which is called Inferno, but we don't get that for another 2 dungeons. Fortunately, we can actually just sort of skip the bridge, if I do all of this correctly. So this is probably the hardest or second hardest trick in the game, depending on who you ask. This is called City Checkpoint Skip, also called Moon Cave Skip, because it skips a dungeon called the Moon Cave. If I don't mess it up. It's a bit of a risk. I might drown here. I did drown. Unfortunate. The day-night cycle caught me at a bad time. But we can just retry it. It's not a big deal. Just waste about a minute. So I will need to focus here, but if you want to know more about City Checkpoint Skip, I made a video on it, which you can find linked in the Okami speedrunning Discord. This trick is quite difficult, and it's quite complicated too. Basically, there's this rock here, and we can climb up it, and then we can do a ground tackle off the top. Oh wow, I got it first try. That is quite impressive. So, just to review, we're supposed to raise or lower that huge bridge there to cross this huge river, but instead we just swam across the river and climbed up this rock. So that is incredibly precise. I made it look a lot easier than it is. That could have taken several minutes of tries if I was unlucky, but fortunately we got it first try. And we are not supposed to be here, by the way. We're supposed to be here way, way later in the game. But this is sort of the start of the second arc of the game's story. There's 3 major arcs, and this one focuses on like southwest Japan, and this is the first area of that called Ryoshima Coast. So Ryoshima Coast is also covered in the Black Caviar. We're actually going to go into the Black Caviar here to skip a fight. First time we're doing that. So you can see my health straining. If I stay too long in here, it's sort of like water where I'll drown. But we can get around, just use this to get around a fight trigger. And that is quite handy. So the whole reason we couldn't do city checkpoint as soon as city checkpoint skip as soon as we got to Taka Pass, because we can access city checkpoint that early, and we can actually do the skip that early too, is we can't progress until we restore Ryoshima, and to do that we need to raise the water here, for which we need Water Spout. So as soon as we get Water Spout, we come here. Yep, nothing to skip there. This will do it. Almost wasted a bunch of time there. So yeah, once we raise the water up all 3 levels, we actually skipped at the middle level, but once we raise it up, we can restore this tree. And that restores Ryoshima Coast. We get a whole whack ton of praise there. And coming up here, if you look on the map in like the left portion, there's a small island with a building on it. We want to get to that building because that's the dojo where we learn the ability to double jump, which, as you can imagine, is quite handy. But we don't actually want to go all the way there because it's quite far away. So instead, we're going to abuse a bit of a quirk in the way this game's level design works, which is that interiors are stored underneath the exterior, but also not underneath the actual like building on the exterior map. So the interior of the dojo is actually stored out of bounds here, and we can clip under this staircase here and just jump and fall into the dojo. So the dojo underneath the map is located right about here. Yep, made it. And this is the dojo master, Onigiri. And that teaches the double jump. And now his head flipped upside down. I skipped that cutscene, I probably shouldn't have. You understand the explanation. I have no idea what the explanation was, but I know that I can press B twice. And that gives me double jump. The game calls it Holy Eagle, but that's a very non-descriptive name. He would give us a Holy Bone there, but we don't need the Holy Bone. It actually wastes some time because it gets in the way in the menu. So now that we have double jump, we're going to go outside the dojo. Isun's going to talk about that the dojo looks kind of shabby here, because we're supposed to hit that dialogue trigger way earlier when we enter the dojo, but we never did. So now we have double jump, very useful ability, especially for skips. There's a lot that we wouldn't be able to do without this, but it is normally required, so it's not a huge deal. Then we're going to skip a fight here. Now I might mess up this fight skip because this one's probably the most precise in the run. So let's see if I can do this correctly. Yep, we got it. And that skips a fight with an enemy called an Ubume, which is sort of like a Krotangu but stronger. And then this brings us to the capital of Japan, Seion City. So unfortunately, Seion City is plagued by a horrible plague, which is killing all of the inhabitants, and we're not going to help them because it's slow. So they're all going to die. Instead, we're going to go right here. We're going to do another interior clip, this time to get an ability that we actually couldn't get otherwise, because we skipped the thing that normally enables you to get this ability. So this is a bit more complicated than just clipping through the staircase. But we can get around the entrance here and get out of bounds here. And we just jump through the unsolid floor and then drift around to get to the actual interior we're looking for. So normally this building would be closed off until we restore Seion, but like I said, we're not going to do that because it's slow. So we're gonna just talk to this guy, Yama, here, and we're gonna give him our golden mushroom. So I mentioned earlier that in order to lower the bridge to City Checkpoint, we need the ability Inferno, which is like the water spout equivalent for fire. As it turns out, there's at least a couple other places in the run where they test that, and so we need some way to create fire. But as it turns out, there's an upgrade to the fire ability, which is called Fire Burst, and you don't need Inferno to get Fire Burst. The game never checks. So we can just get it right here, which is a lot faster than getting Inferno, believe me. Like 20 minutes faster. Getting Inferno takes a long time. And then we get this free food, so this fills up our extra life, our astral pouch, and it also gives us 26,000 yen. Don't ask why, but compliments to the chef. So you can see here we're actually going to come outside, and then there's not going to be a building behind us, because the building that's normally that we were in, the normal interior, is actually inside the curse zone. So the building isn't supposed to appear at all until you clear the curse zone. So we just skipped clearing that, which skips a whole bunch of stuff later, in combination with another skip we'll be doing. This is the aristocratic quarter of Seon. There's supposed to be water here, but all the water's been drained. So normally, in order to raise this bridge to get to the other side, we need to talk to this guy here and fish with him. Because he's a bit of a dick. He wants to fish, but he lowered the bridge to do that, which disrupts everyone else's daily life. So, unfortunately, that takes too long. So we're going to skip both returning the water and fishing with that guy, just by doing that jump there. So that jump is sort of similar to City Checkpoint skip, but it's a lot easier. And then this here is Waka again. He's back. He's going to make us talk to him. And then here we're going to skip talking to yet another character by doing this. Mess it up. To try again. Nice thing about most of the hard skips in this run is you can try them again really quickly. So there we go. That skips that. So there's a character in that building there named Rao, who we don't want to talk to because it takes too long. And then here we're going to be skipping an entire dungeon, which is over there, where we'd have to actually like go back and forth through Seon twice in order to get to that dungeon. And that dungeon gives you the ability to slow down time, which lets you sneak past these guards, but we can actually sneak past them without slowing down time, just by distracting them a bit. And yep, we did it. So now we're inside the palace early, so this is another sequence break. And then here comes the hardest part, the hardest trick in the entire run. So, this is the palace of the Queen of Japan, Queen Himiko, and she's sort of controlling the border to the next area we want to go to, which is North Ryushima. And she won't let us through until she talks to us, because she needs to see our true power. But unfortunately, as a test to our true power, she has hidden herself behind this. If I can get the camera to cooperate. There's a giant sea of lava here, and if we jump in the lava, we'll drown instantly. But normally, you'd be able to, from doing that dungeon that we skipped, or one of the dungeons that we skipped, you'd get an item called the Fire Tablet, which lets you swim through water, or swim through fire, or lava, I guess. So, normally, there's a lot of lava here, and we can't just jump over it, so we're screwed. We have to get the Fire Tablet, right? Well, as it turns out, there's a frame-perfect jump here. But I just messed up. This will take several minutes, by the way. Don't expect this to be done quickly, because this is incredibly frame-perfect. This is about 5 frame-perfect inputs, with 1 total frame of leniency. Never mind, I got it. Nice. So it's not supposed to be that fast, by the way. It's supposed to take a lot longer than that. But, yeah, we have to jump across that sea of fire, and it's 5 frame-perfect inputs to jump across, and we can just barely make it. So, obviously, the QA testers didn't try that hard. That trick was, for a long time, not considered to be human viable, but I designed some, like, position setups that make it human viable. So this is Queen Himiko. So we're agreeing to help her. Basically, one of the problems with Seon, besides the fact that everyone inside is dying, is that the water dragon, who's a giant sea serpent, is blocking the shipping routes to Seon, so no one can get their Amazon Prime orders. So we need to go kill the dragon. So I just jumped across that sea of lava again. Now, as it turns out, jumping across it backwards is a lot easier than jumping across it forwards. So that trick I don't even need to do any setups for. But yeah. Unfortunately, we actually have to do Fire Tablet Skip again later on in the run. Much later. So that's going to repeat one more time. And hopefully it will be quick that time too. Overall, if you were able to get Fire Tab Skip twice first try, it would save about 20 minutes, but usually you lose like about 5 minutes to attempting it. So this is the lady we didn't see before. This is Lady Rao. Say hi to Lady Rao. And say bye to Lady Rao, because we are going to completely ignore her. But she's going to come up later, so don't forget about her. Waka is still standing here. He's actually not going to leave, because his trigger to leave is something that we skip. So now that we have the passport to North Ryoshima, we're just going to go there, so that we can help Himiko get her Amazon Prime orders on time. So keep in mind, all of these people are not only dying, they can't get their shipments. So that's really sucky. We're going to help them with the shipments, but they're still going to die, unfortunately, because actually saving them takes too much time. So that whole gauntlet of tricks in Seian was all just so that we could, well, primarily so that we could go here. Because these guys, despite us being a god, they won't let us through until we have permission from Queen Himiko. And that brings us to North Ryoshima. Now, something special you might notice about North Ryoshima is that there's no black caviar. That's because Waka has already dispelled the black caviar. So, he could have done that before, by the way. He clearly has the ability to help us, but he just refuses to. So he's basically like a cheaty speedrunner. He gets all to all the places that we cheat to get to, even faster. So he's a complete cheat. This enemy we're also going to just nuke with a medium exorcism slip. I'm surprised I have not gotten one of those yet. That's the smallest health refill you can get. And somehow that's the first one I picked up. So there's more scrolls here. They don't chase you during the day, but it's about to turn night, so hopefully we can make it through this segment before it turns night. Yep, we don't have anything to sell. We're just going to buy some mermaid coins. This is how we use the fast travel. It's the currency of fast travel. So every one of those you need for every trip you make. We're going to set another fast travel point here, because we skipped setting one earlier that we could have used instead. But it turns out it's faster to use this one, just barely. And then we're going to talk to this guy. So the thing is, the water dragon is controlled by a race of people who live under the sea, known as the Dragonians. But seeing as they live under the sea, we can't just go visit them and hash things out. So we need to summon their envoy, whose name is Orca, and Orca is an orca. So Orca is summoned by seeing the rising sun at the edge of these piers here, which is explained to us by that kid that we just saved. Jump onto his back. This is Orca. Right on Orca. We do. We do. So now we're going to just mash the B button to go faster, because quite conveniently the game understands what we actually want to do here. And rather than going straight to the Dragon Palace, we actually can't, because for some reason the Dragonians are also dicks, similar to Himiko. They want to test us. So in order to reach the Dragon Palace underwater, we have to make a huge whirlpool in the ocean here. And to do that, we need to do a bunch of stuff that you'll see later. I can't really explain it right now because it doesn't actually make sense, but we're going to do everything. So the first thing we need to do here is we need to go to Catcall Tower, which is this giant tower. It's basically Doug Dimmadome's hat, but bigger. And we need to climb up the whole thing. But first we're going to skip a fight. So let me just do a setup here. And we made it. Okay. So that fight skips pretty quick. The fight it skips is not very long, but it helps. So basically there's this special marking on the wall called the marks of Kabegami, and this lets us stick to the wall. But the marks aren't all over the tower, so we can't just climb straight up, so we need to take a specific path around So you'll see me doing a specific rhythm here. This is about like 200 straight jump inputs to climb all the way up. And I have to do it in a specific rhythm to go as fast as possible. So, not much to talk about here. It's just a couple minutes of straight mashing A. Where am I right now? Yeah, I still need to go this way. There's a bunch of like items we could be getting along the way, but obviously they waste time because we don't need those items. So we're almost at the top, so this won't last much longer. And fortunately we only have to climb it once. And because we climbed up without hitting any platforms, we get this reward here, which we're going to ignore. The camera here is very annoying, by the way. A lot of the fixed cameras in Okami they don't help you. They really just make things worse. So this particular one, we can't like maintain dash for some reason, so you have to just repeatedly tackle and hope you don't bounce. And then here's the reason why we actually came up here. There's this cat. And we have to feed the cat. We're just gonna run straight at the cat, not scary at all. And now that we fed the cat, the brush god, who's also a cat, Kabegami, is going to reward us with the ability to make marks of Kabegami wherever we want, as long as where we want to make them is also by a statue of Kabegami. So Kabegami is very vain, a very vain god. Here we have to make a bunch, like we have to draw a very squiggly line here or else Isun will complain, because he's also he's also very vain. What? That's not supposed to happen. In order to get that particular brush technique, the symbol I'm supposed to draw is an infinity symbol, like this. But for some reason I got it even though I just drew a big squiggly. So yeah, the brush recognition in this game isn't perfect, but you learn to deal with it. And we're just going to jump down here. Take it around first. And then here's another mermaid spring, so we can just use this to teleport back to North Ryoshima. Except we're actually not going to do that, because we actually can't progress any further with what we've done. In order to do the next thing that we need to actually get to the Dragon Palace, we need an ability that we skipped getting earlier. So we're going to go back and get it now. You'd think that would be slower, but it's actually only about 10 seconds slower to do it this way, but it moves the two hardest tricks in the run 20 minutes earlier. So it's very preferable to do it this way. To do things out of order like this. So first we have to do a QTE with Susanoo. This is the last time we'll be seeing Susanoo awake in the run, if I remember correctly. This is sort of unrelated to the actual thing we have to do right now, but for some reason the game devs made it so that you have to do things in this order, so that you wouldn't forget. So now we have some abilities we're not supposed to have this early, namely we have double jump, which is not too useful right now, but it is going to come in handy later. So it lets us skip swimming here, which we'd normally have to do. So now we're going to help Kokari fish yet again. Yep. Let's wish for good luck on the fishing. So once again, we're just going to ignore Kokari's stamina and just catch things as quickly as we can. It makes some funny sounds. That's the only good thing about Kukari. Nya nya! And we got 2 killifish. I wonder what that means. There's gotta be some type of astrology that has to do with Okami fishing. So this guy, he actually takes 2 power slashes to bring down. So we have to do a second round of fishing for him. So this is Have It Your Way, the Whopper. The idea is he ate the reflection of the moon off of the lake's surface. So now that we've fished him out of the water, he's going to spit up the reflection, which is going to summon the moon god, Yomigami, who happens to be a rabbit with a big mallet for making mochi, or whatever it's called. So now we can draw the moon and turn it nighttime. This would have been a nice ability to have early, but for some reason they give it to you very late in the game. Or like halfway through the first arc of the game, which is late for us. So this is Ume. We rescued him earlier, but now we have to fight him. Very tragic. Nice. That was a pretty good dogfight. You can see there he did the like ringing sound, which means he turned invincible, but you can cancel his invincibility with a power slash. So now we defeated Ume, we only have 1 dog left. So we're going to go and get that dog. You'll notice my praise counter is 299. I'm not actually missing any praise, it just works out that way. I could get an extra praise quite easily, but it wouldn't actually save any time, because I would need about 330 praise to actually be able to like do a safety strat later. And it takes too long to get 30 extra praise, so we don't do it. So we're going to go back to Shinshu Field. This is the first time we're warping back here, but it is quite handy that we can do it. We'll be warping back here yet again later. One interesting thing is, Isun, because we skipped getting an ability earlier that lets us draw platforms on water, Isun will actually not let us go straight into Kamiki Village. He's going to complain that we're supposed to like keep exploring, but we can just tell him no. Also, that out of bounds thing I just did is a waste of time. I was just doing it for fun, so I had more time to explain that. And then now, the canine tracker will activate one final time. And it takes forever for Isun to start talking there. It's kind of annoying. And then here's our dog. So this is the dog of Mushi, who we did a digging minigame for earlier. And the only reason we did that digging minigame is because if we don't do it, this dog here won't fight us. So, bit of a dick. This is Hayabusa. And let's hope we get one more good dog fight. Really? There we go. So now he's down. That wasn't too bad, but it could have gone better. So now we have all 8 of the Satomi power orbs. So now we can go to the dungeon that we were supposed to go to way earlier, but we skipped. And that dungeon is Gale Shrine. So we have double jump here, makes the platform here tiny bit faster, but that's it. No big skips we can do, unfortunately. So now we have to head way back to Taka Pass, so that we can go to Kusa Village, which is where Gale Shrine is. And we're just gonna get stuck on Tsukusa Village first. So keep in mind, right now we've gotten really out of our way to do a bunch of stuff early, and now we're going back to do something that we had started like an hour ago, maybe. It was a long time ago. But now we're back in Kusa Village, and we have a couple abilities we're not supposed to have yet, and the main one that's going to come in handy for us is double jump, and you're going to see that in a few minutes. Exactly what we're going to use that for. We can actually get up here. Doesn't really save any time, just for fun. And we need to go talk to Fisei here, so we're gonna go into her her house. And all of the dogs are here except the ones that we just fought. So my favorite wolf. And she gives us the rest of the Satomi power orbs. So now we have the key. And this is the dungeon. Just gonna jump over the rock. And like I said, we already saw Susano for awake the last time. But Susano's gonna be asleep here. So he's just sleep talking. And this is a ghost. He makes sure that our Satomi power orbs are genuine and not counterfeit, and he lets us into the dungeon. Very kind guy. So this is Gale Shrine. It's a pretty short dungeon. This is one of the shorter ones casually. Not too complicated. But we're going to be skipping the second half of it, because as it turns out, we don't need to fight the boss. We just need the brush power that we get in this dungeon. This is a new enemy, a Chimera. Fortunately, Chimeras are really easy to defeat. Oh no. No, no. Oh, that worked. Just takes 3 cherry bombs and we die. Don't even need Steel Fist Sake. Don't need to do any shenanigans making them vulnerable like the Blood Ogres. And that gives us a key. So one convenient thing about keys is that you can actually drop them, and you can just leave. You don't actually need the key. Because the key reappears in your mouth for some reason. I don't really understand why that happens, but if you drop keys, and keys specifically, they'll reappear in your mouth later. Just cut a corner there. But we do actually need this key, so we can't drop it again. So we're gonna kill this guy, this Lockjaw. And there's an elevator here, which is powered by explosions. Got hit. One thing you'll notice here is that my grade for damage is going to be a green chip tree instead of a pink one. Basically, if you get hit at all in most fights, you get a bad grade for damage automatically, which reduces the amount of like extra money you get from the fight, which can cause problems later. But that fight is so minor in the amount of money it gives you that it doesn't really matter. There's just specific fights you don't really want to get hit on, but none of them are particularly difficult to avoid, at least in this category. So we need to go to the second floor this time, which means we need to use the explosion elevator twice, which is very annoying, because up here is another Lockjaw. Yep. Just going to do some camera tricks to avoid losing our dash running up here. And then this is the top of Gale Shrine. So there's some cursed winds here, and we just need to blow in the other direction to uncurse them. And once we've blown away all of the cursed winds, we can see another constellation. And this is Kazegami. He's a horse, but he gives us the ability to control the wind. And that's the ability we need, because we literally cannot skip it. It is a hard check. We actually need this ability, and there's nothing we can do about it. But now that we have it, we can actually do a bit of a cheat here to get out. This is something that's only possible because we have double jump this early, which we're not supposed to have. So we just need to leave the dungeon now that we have what we want. We don't actually need to, we don't need to beat the boss. So now that we have the power, we can just clip out here. As it turns out, that's right above, like, this bridge here that we entered from. So we're just going to leave now. And that saves about 20 seconds over leaving normally. So here, Yusun's got a funny line. So, we're gonna leave, but then he's gonna say, remember, we can't ignore Crimson Helm forever. We're going to ignore Crimson Helm forever. We're not coming back here. Because all we needed was, that ability we just got, which is called Gale Storm. That's the main reason why I chose English, by the way. I just wanted to show off that line. So now we have Gale Storm, we're going to go and resume the other quest that we took a break from in order to come here. And that was what we were doing with the Dragonians and helping Queen Himiko get her Amazon Prime shipments. So we just need to run to this Mermaid Spring that we opened up way earlier, and I'm going to use it one more time. And we need to take this to North Hiroshima. We need to do a minor extra shopping trip here to get some items that we didn't get earlier. So we're going to sell all the fish we gathered earlier. And we need 3 XL, 2 SFS, and a Holy Bone. So Holy Bones are healing items that we can use anywhere, and normally we wouldn't need to heal anywhere, because, you know, we're speedrunners, we don't get hurt. But we're going to need to take some damage later, and the damage would actually kill us if we didn't have that, which would cause us to be soft locked. So we don't want to do that. Here's a statue of Kabegami, and we can use it to get up here. And then for this guy, we're going to draw a shooting star, and he's going to make a wish on the shooting star that he could see the spiral galaxy, because he wanted to see the spiral galaxy because he's a astronomer or something. So now the spiral galaxy is here, and as it turns out, the secret to opening up the whirlpool to the Dragon Palace is to spin the spiral galaxy, and in order to spin the spiral galaxy, you need to blow the wind on Earth in Japan, and that causes the spiral galaxy to spin. which opens up the whirlpool. Yeah, don't ask me. This was someone's idea. I blame Shinto mythology. But yeah, that's the main reason why we got Galestorm. We will need it once later, but this is the primary reason why we get it now. So now that we opened up the whirlpool, we can't actually swim to it. We have to take Orca into it, because otherwise it'll just spit us back out because we're too small or something. So, here's Orca. He's back at the pier, just waiting. What? I saw that, right? I was standing on the water. Come on. Finally. So now that's the water dragon over there. I think this is the first time we actually see him. Yeah. So that's the water dragon there. He's delaying some shipments. Yeah, the science checks out. Thinking. And now we go into the whirlpool. And this brings us to the bottom of the ocean, to the Dragon Palace. Don't worry about Amaterasu's being able to breathe because she's a god, so she doesn't need oxygen. I can't really explain how Isun can breathe though. That doesn't really check out. So the security guards are kind of pissed at us because we're just a random wolf at the bottom of the ocean. That's kind of suspicious. I wouldn't let us in either. So understandably she lets us in. Then we need to go upstairs to see the Queen of the Dragonians, Orihime. Thank you for the good luck, Giant Cookie Jar. This is the guy who discovered like half the tricks in this run. He's big help. So we need to not listen to Okami again, because that's slow. So we're just going to talk to her a couple times. And basically what she's going to do is tell us to do a hit job on the dragon. She also wants some prime shipments, which are understandably hard to get at the bottom of the ocean. But the water dragon isn't helping, so she wants us to kill the water dragon. So we're going to go kill the water dragon, because this guy's delaying everyone's Amazon Prime shipments, which obviously makes everyone very upset. Fortunately, the guy, water dragon here is just going to go to sleep in this hole here, which is very convenient for us. Even though he was awake a minute ago. Guess he's jet lagged or something. So we're just going to jump into his mouth. And this, canonically, would be the second time we've been inside someone. But this is only the first in the run. We skipped the other time that we went inside someone. The other time being, of course, the Emperor of Japan. So now we're inside the water dragon, and we need to kill the water dragon. So let's go find his vital organs. There's some demons inside here, which might be why he's so angry. But we need to help him out with that. So we got this key. And we're just going to swim over here while avoiding more demon scrolls. And this is the first time we actually use a water spout pillar. So this is also last time we use a key. And there you go. That's the last lockjaw that we're actually going to open. So this is the water orb. This is the source of the water dragon's power, and you can see it's very fleshy. So unfortunately we can't just grab it right now because the water dragon's flesh is too powerful. So we need to go and use the water dragon's own weapons against it. Give it a taste of its own medicine. And I really do mean taste, because we're actually going to defeat the water dragon using acid reflux. So we have some stomach acid here, which is a very lovely red color. And we need to use it to destroy this membrane. That's going to release all of the stomach acid. So this is why we needed the healing item. This acid, not only do we have limited breath in it because it's water, but it constantly drains our health, and it drains our health even faster than it drains our breath. So in order to make sure we do not die, we actually need to upgrade our health here. Except we're going to upgrade our wallet instead and just use the Holy Bone for health. I'm on the way swimming here. I have just enough breath to make it, but I can use Water Spout on this Water Orb. And then we're just going to release the Water Orb. And now that we have the Water Orb, some Fox Demons come out. I don't really understand this part, but they're here, and we're just going to nuke them with large Exorcism Slips. Fortunately, they contain a lot of money, so it's actually worth it to do this. So now here's a bit of an annoying section. The Water Dragon's dying, so there's acid falling from the ceiling. But where the acid falls is RNG, and if it falls on us while we're in the air, we just fall straight down. And we want to avoid that. So you can see it fell on me right there. Which is quite annoying, because I think I won't be able to make this jump. Yeah, just barely missed it. So we're just going to swim down here instead. If we didn't get hit, I would have been able to do a jump that skips swimming here, which saves a bit of time. It's also possible to die here if you get really unlucky, like I am right now. But I should be okay, I shouldn't die, as long as I'm careful. But yeah, we call this the RNG acid. Thank you for the encouragement, everyone. So yeah, now we successfully assassinated the Water Dragon. We're gonna go get paid, but first, we're gonna skip a cutscene where Evil Rao comes down to the bottom of the ocean. Or, sorry, I mean regular Rao. Not evil at all, for sure. And she's going to take an item we just got from us, which is the Fox Rod. So, not only was the Dragon Orb, or the Water Orb inside the Water Dragon, the Fox Rods were in there too, and as it turns out, the Fox Rods are part of Rao's cosplay kit. So she's upset because she ordered a cosplay from Amazon and it still didn't come, so she came down to get it from us. And as it turns out, the Water Dragon had swallowed the cosplay. So now Rao has her cosplay, but Orihime, the Queen of the Dragonians, foresaw that Rao is actually going to go do some naughty things with the cosplay to Queen Himiko. So we need to go interrupt that. Unfortunately, Isun won't let us use fast travel right now, even though it would save time. So we have to go straight to where we need to go on foot. Or Orca. Orca's right here. This music's pretty good, by the way. So, in order to get to Queen Himiko, normally we would just go to Seon right now, but fortunately or unfortunately, depending on who you ask, we actually can't go to Seon because the city's locked down. It's fortunate because it means we don't have to do Seon bridge skip again, but it's unfortunate because it means we have to waste time, which is sad. So that ship there is actually a mini dungeon that we skipped, along with a full dungeon that we skipped by doing Fire Tablet skip. But, yeah. So here we're going to go to Ankoku Temple, which is like the temple that Rao is actually supposed to be responsible for, but she's just like as a side gig in the city, I guess. Probably to make some extra money for her cosplays. But as it turns out, so this is the ghost of Rao. So Rao's actually dead. So the Rao we saw earlier in Seon City that we completely ignored is actually an imposter. A cosplay imposter. She cosplayed as Rao, and now she's going to cosplay as Rao cosplaying as a fox, which is why she needed the fox rods. So yeah, as it turns out, Rao has a secret tunnel into Queen Himiko's palace. So this would have been nice to know about earlier, because it would have skipped a whole bunch of stuff getting to Himiko's palace. But unfortunately, we can't like access this tunnel before now. So now we're in Himiko's palace, and something is clearly wrong because the music is ominous. But unfortunately, we actually have to go see Himiko again, which means we have to do Fire Tablet skip again. So this is the second time. So I'm going to set up for it now. No idea. Drifting pancake. So we're going to just do Fire Tablet skip again. So I'm going to give myself about like 5 minutes to do this. It's 118 where I'm at. Okay, let's try. Oh, that's bad. I've already lost my dash. So if you lose your dash up here, which is very easy to do, you just have to restore it. Which takes about 15 to 20 seconds. So you need gold dash for this trick, which is part of the annoying thing about it. Oh, couldn't make it there. Oh, I'm low on health. I probably should have refilled that earlier. Hopefully I do not die, because I would have to use my extra life, which I'd like to keep for later, for some more dangerous parts. No. That is no good. Okay, we just made it. Thank goodness. We would have had 2 more tries to fall into the lava before we actually died. I'm gonna refill my health here so I don't die to this fight, because guess what? Himiko's actually dead. Cosplay Rao has killed her. So we're going to fight Cosplay Rao, and being a furry, fighting Rao works exactly like fighting the dogs. So we're gonna use an SFS and then draw cherry bombs in her way. We got a bad pattern. Yeah, much like the dog, she also has things she can do to make herself invulnerable. So we did get hit there, which was a bit of time. Okay. Fight's over. Yeah, that shouldn't be a big deal. So basically, now that Himiko's dead, she gave us a premonition from beyond the grave, which is the location of Evil Rao's secret furry base. And it's actually a mobile volcano. So we need to reach it before nightfall, which is why there's now the urgent music playing again. So what I skipped in that cutscene there is that Evil Rao went from like fox cosplay to full persona, and she is transformed into a fox demon called Ninetails. I lost my dash, no big deal. Oh, one funny thing I want to show off here. So if you remember before, we actually skipped visiting Rao the first time. We only like saw her briefly. And because of that, there's actually still a trigger here that prevents us from leaving. Wait, says no one. Why are you in such a hurry? So normally you're not supposed to be able to just run through this building, but because Rao will stop you. But because we never cleared that like trigger, the trigger's still there, so we can't go through the back exit. Not that we'd want to, but it's kind of funny. Even when she's gone, she can still slow us down. There are some categories where you'd actually have to go through there more than once, and in those categories you have to do, if you do Rao skip the first time, you have to do it every single time you go through that area. Until you get fast travel, of course. So yeah, all these people are still dying, by the way. We're supposed to have saved these guys a long time ago, but we never did. Like before we even went to North Ryoshima. So coming up is our next major dungeon, our next shrine. This is Oni Island. It is Ninetales' secret base. This is actually one of my favorite dungeons in the speedrun because it's very heavy on skips. And you'll be seeing that right off the bat because we're going to skip the entire first half of the dungeon. We're actually going to do a fight skip here. I don't think I actually explained that I did this earlier as well. You have to skip this fight twice because the trigger is still there. So just going to skip it again real quick. And then here's Orihime. Orihime decided to fight cosplay with cosplay, so she's going to use the dragon orb to turn into a giant body pillow and form a bridge over to Oni Island. So yeah, this is a very furry adventure. So coming up here, in order to enter Oni Island's actually filled with lava. And in order to enter Oni Island, we're actually supposed to have not only the fire tablet, but also Inferno. But as it turns out, we can skip that with a very precisely timed jump, if I can get it correctly. Got it. So that jump skips that lava pillar down there, which we need Inferno for. And then there's a bunch of lava here. You have to like get to that door, and that takes forever. And then you have to do a bunch of stuff inside Oni Island, so we're gonna skip that. So we can get over this invisible wall here, and then just run around the volcano. So as we're climbing around the volcano, we're constantly slipping down because this is a slippery surface. Even though it's solid, which is convenient. But that means that we actually need to jump basically as soon as we land on the volcano, or we'll slip down too far and we won't have enough height for the next part of the trick. So we need to be like maintaining good timing on our jumps this whole time in order to do this trick quickly. Otherwise we can sort of get screwed at the end. So I'm actually losing speed right now, so I'm gonna do a tackle. That can be dangerous. So this is our objective here. It's this tiger statue. We need to get close enough to it for our brush to activate. And we need to do rejuvenation on the arrow on its back, which is actually a thunderbolt. So this is the statue of Gekigami, who's a tiger, and he's the god of thunder. Nope, too early. So this gives us a new brush power called Thunderstorm, which is actually, like, it's the equivalent of Water Spout, but for electricity. So we can use it to activate a bunch of mechanisms in this dungeon. Here is this revolving bridge, and revolving bridges in this game all have no bottom. You can just jump right through them, which is quite convenient. So now we're going to actually enter Oni Island for the first time. But this is like halfway through the dungeon, basically. We've skipped a whole bunch of it by doing that. Here we're going to get an item really quick, and we have to blow up this floor. Thank you for the well wishes, Faker. So this is an electric key. This is the first time we're seeing one of these. And they're like regular keys, except they also like solidify these electric platforms. No, that doesn't make any sense. It's just Shinto physics. The camera's not cooperating with me right now. We're gonna skip a fight here if I can do it correctly. This one is pretty small. We just go around this room and we skip the fight trigger. And then here's a paper door maze. I happen to know the exact path, so I can do this very quickly. Unfortunately, the bomb didn't blow up right away, so it wasn't in contact with the wall. Here's a fight. I'm gonna just skip it. Or, well, beat it quickly with the ecosystem slip. And we go through here. And this is one of the first interior rooms we're supposed to get to. But we're like in the second half of it, so we're skipping the entire first half of this floor. I'm gonna open that chest there real quick, and then I'm just gonna buy some stuff. So from this point on, basically all we're going to be buying is large exosystem slips, because we need as many as we can get, because we're going to be using a lot of them. And then we're gonna blow up the statue with electricity. Don't ask me why it explodes. I guess Ninetales decided to rig her base with explosives. And this room here is another room where we're going to be using like R3 to flip around the camera quickly. So we need to hit all 5 of these switches. There's a 5th one back here. So I can just use R3 to flip the camera around very quickly, since otherwise I'd have to pan it all the way around, which would take forever. And then this next section here is actually a side-scroller. There's a couple places in the game that do this, but this one's probably the most interesting. So it's technically still 3D, but it's all from a side-on perspective. So once again, these revolving bridges are actually a bit glitchy. Yeah, you can see there, I sort of teleported through it twice. And unfortunately here we're kind of locked into some cycles. So we need to do all of this relatively quickly. Yes, I made the early cycle. That's nice. Save some time. Otherwise I'd have to wait there for a couple seconds. And then we have to wait here, so this next part is very cycle heavy. Yep. Oh no. I'm missing all the cycles. No. Oh well, it was slow, but it doesn't particularly matter. So now is the 4th floor, and this is probably my favorite segment in the whole run. Just because there's so many like small things you do in this part. So this is the 4th floor. I'm just gonna let it speak for itself. Okay, now that we're up here, I do want to explain this. So we're going to clip our camera through the wall here in order to blow up this wall from behind, which skips like half of the floor. We can just put a bomb there. And this is Toby the Prayer Slip. We're supposed to have met him like several times already, but we skip every other race with him. So when we race him here, he dies. Yep, that's Toby. Rest in peace. I love Okami too. I am too Afrian? Oh, I'm Zephyrian. I think that's what your tag is. It's a lovely game and a fantastic speedrun. So this is the end of Oni Island. Now we're going to go fight Ninetales, the evil persona of Rao. The evil imposter Rao, I should say. So Ninetales is a bit vain. They see themselves as a god, so we actually have to reveal them with a constellation, even though they're not actually a brush god. And then the fight here is pretty interesting. You have to make them vulnerable, and then, like Brawlhalla, they sort of explode into a bunch of spirits. And 2 of the spirits have extra health, so I need to watch them carefully. So we're just going to nuke all of the spirits with Exorcism Slips for extra damage. So that spirit has a bit less health than the other spirit, so I can just hit it with a Power Slash. And now Ninetales is down to its one-tailed form, so we can just nuke the rest of its health down. I am having a great time. I'm Zephyrian. This is a lot of fun. You might have noticed after every boss, the game gives you a save prompt, and we skip all of them. That's because this category is timed by in-game time, so we're not allowed to use saves, even as backups. But obviously in the marathon, if something goes wrong, I'll use a backup save. It just wouldn't count for a full run. So now that we've done Oni Island, the main important thing that we got from that is Thunderstorm. So we need Thunderstorm in order to activate the next... in order to enter the final area, like the final arc of the game. We have to dodge these scrolls here. As it turns out, the final arc of the game is right next to the first arc of the game. You'd think that would be a big opportunity for skips, but as it turns out, we actually need a lot of these things regardless. So even if you could go straight from this area, Shinshu Field, to this next area that we're going to, it wouldn't actually save you much time, because we have to get all of these abilities anyway, and we have to do a bunch of all of these things to get them regardless. And I'll explain why that is much later. So coming up here, there's a catwalk statue here. So we can just draw some marks of Okami. This is the second required time we're supposed to use catwalk, or the second actually like location where we have to use it. Nope. This cutscene, not supposed to do that. And by blowing up this like stone monument thing with electricity, we open up a door. And this door leads to Hokkaido, pretty much. The equivalent of Hokkaido. Because if it wasn't already obvious, since this game is based on Shinto mythology, all of the locations are based on real locations in Japan. The game calls, like in English, the game calls this area, like the world, Nippon, which is just the endonym. It's what the Japanese call Japan. And this game, instead of calling Hokkaido Hokkaido, it calls Hokkaido, load, Kamui, which is yet another name from Shinto mythology. Or if you happen to be a Naruto fan, you'll know this name as well. Because guess what also draws from Shinto mythology? So here, we're actually supposed to like do a fight and then go to that house there, which is the house of a guy named Oki. But we're going to skip that, because we can do something called a camera adventure. Now, camera adventure I explained a bit earlier, but it's basically when you drag the brush camera out of its normal bounds, and we can do a huge one right here. So basically right now the Kamui is cursed, so there's another Guardian Sapling here, right? Like all of the other places that were cursed. But the Guardian Sapling is actually underground. It's underneath this mountain here that we're supposed to blow up with a lightning arrow, but we can skip blowing it up just by doing a big camera adventure under the map here, and we can bloom it from below. So we're going to be blind here, but the camera is moving. You just can't see it because we're facing the void. So we should be under the tree now. I might have gone too far. This should be good. Yeah, we're good. Oh yeah, I did cover that at the beginning of the run, I'm Zephyrian, but as Fenki explained, all the 2017 remakes are equally viable for new game speedruns. So now that we bloomed this from below, we completely skipped meeting Oki, and we're actually going to skip a fight here. So there's a fight here with an enemy called an igloo turtle, and it's a regular enemy, but it's really slow to defeat for some reason. The devs just made it very broken. So we're actually going to go around the fight using this vine here, and it's going to try and pull us through an invisible wall, but if a vine can't pull you directly to it, it'll give up after a second. So we need to use 3 vines at least in order to get over here. But yeah, that gets us all the way around the igloo turtle trigger, so we don't have to fight it. And we're going to buy even more exorcism slips here. So we already done 2 big skips in, well, not big, but like interesting skips in Kamui. And up next is the town in Kamui, which is Wepkir. Spelled funny, but it's called Wepkir. So Wepkir is inhabited by a race of like werewolf people called Oina. Oki is also one of these werewolf people. And we're supposed to help them because currently their town is being assaulted by a blizzard, which is caused by their sacred mountain, which is actually a twin-peaked mountain named Izafuji. So we're supposed to like help them with that, and then they let us through the gate to the mountain. But we don't actually want to help them because that's slow, so we're just going to go directly to Izafuji. So we need to get through that gate, but as it turns out, we can go around the gate out of bounds, so we're going to try that right now. So we can clip out of bounds here. Well, like, there's no invisible wall here, so we can actually just get out of bounds. It was a dev oversight, they didn't think you could jump all the way here. And there's an invisible wall at the top of this mountain, so if we climb high enough, we can jump over it. And that gets us to this next out of bounds area. So this next next hill here, shouldn't call it a mountain. And then we can get behind the chief's house, and we can clip into bounds somewhere around here. Invisible walls in Okami are actually double-sided, so we can't clip into bounds just anywhere. We have to clip into bounds only where there's a clipping location, like an acute angle, and that's one of them. Yes. So the route you've seen me run today is actually the advanced route of the run. This is the world record route. The 2 hard tricks that I did in this run were city checkpoint skip and fire tablet skip, but you don't have to do those to beat the game. So there's actually a beginner's route, which is based on what the route was like before those tricks were discovered, as well as incorporating some tricks that were discovered since that aren't as hard. So that's the beginner's route, and I have a text and video guide for it, which should be very good if you want to learn the run. There's no reason not to start with the beginner's route because you learn almost all of the same tricks, you just avoid specifically the hard ones. So don't worry about starting with the beginner's route. You'll still be able to get good times and learn all of the fundamentals. So right here, this is actually the next dungeon. This is Waku Shrine, but you can see it's locked off. There's a big door here. So we're actually supposed to help the Oina open the door by doing a whole side quest where we actually go like 100 years in the past and visit Isun's hometown. It's very complicated. So we're just going to skip that because it takes about 35 minutes and we don't have 35 minutes. So by using the vine here, we can actually gain enough height to clip over this invisible wall from on top of this house. And now we're out of bounds. So you can see invisible wall double-sided. And then we can just hit the loading zone trigger from the side. So that's Waku early. That trick is quite easy, but it saves 35 minutes, which is fantastic. It's one of the best skips in the run in terms of like actual efficacy. It's not hard and it saves a ton of time. So as it turns out, my promise is not wrong. We do major skips in every single dungeon in the run. and Waku is no exception. So we're going to skip most of the first floor here, because there's a lockjaw there, and we don't actually need to open that lockjaw. We can go around the lockjaw. We can sort of warp through it. So we're going to do another camera adventure here. And I've actually done some experimentation recently to optimize this a bit, so this shouldn't take quite as long as it normally does. Alright, if I can get close enough. This might be close enough. Nope. So we're gonna need to wait a bit for my ink to refill, because I tried that a bit too early. So the camera right now is frozen, but if I touched any of the controls, it would actually unfreeze. So we need to wiggle the camera out of here. It's a bit stuck at the moment. Yep, okay. Yeah, camera adventures can be quite finicky, especially in areas with a lot of walls. I just want to get close enough so that I don't have to try again. Okay, that should be good enough. And then... there we go. So by melting the ice, we can actually warp ourselves through it. So now we're behind that lockjaw. So that's the only technically required use of Inferno in the run, and we skip it with a big camera adventure using Fire Burst. So now we're up here. These cannons are going to shoot at us. Hopefully we don't fall down here because it can waste a bunch of time. I'm actually going to grab this health here just in case, because we're going to need a lot of health coming up. So right here, we're supposed to do these by slowing them down using an ability that lets us slow down time. Because those gears are like really fast spinning gears, and normally they're not supposed to let you step on them. But we skipped the ability that lets us slow down time. It's called Veil of Mist, and we skipped it because it was in one of the dungeons we skipped. But as it turns out, for some reason, Fire Burst also slows down time. So we can use it exactly the same way. So it's quite convenient. So this enemy here is a Great Tengu, and we can just nuke it. And then now we can get the last brush power. So we're supposed to get about 13 brush powers throughout the run, but we can skip all of them, except, like, we can skip a bunch of them, like I've already done. I've skipped 2 entire brush powers and 1, like, part of a brush power. But the game still thinks this is the last brush power anyway, because you know, you had to have gotten all the other ones to get here, right? They didn't plan on us doing all those skips. So we're automatically going to not only get this brush power, but we're going to get a new reflector, a new weapon, which you're supposed to get story-wise for getting all of the brush powers. So now on our back we have Solar Flare. So this ability that we just got is Blizzard. It's like Water Spout but for ice. And it's quite handy, but we don't actually need it that many times. There's only going to be a couple times coming up where we can't skip it. But unfortunately those times are there. There's nothing we can do to get around them. So next we're going to skip half the dungeon. So this is the actual like big skip in this dungeon. This is called Nechku Skip, because this skips the mini boss, which is actually 1/2 of the final boss of the dungeon. So we can get over the invisible wall there, and then climb along this slippery slope here, and get just over to this ledge here. So this is, you're not supposed to get here until much later. And then here we're actually supposed to use 2 abilities we never got, Fire Burst, or sorry, Inferno, and sorry, I need to focus. This part's quite dangerous. We need to use Inferno and Veil of Mist here, but we can skip both of those. by using the slowdown effect from... got hit. That should be it. So, in order to reflect the shots from the cannon, we need to slow down time so that they're visible. And then we need to power slash them. So to slow down time, you're supposed to use Veil of Mist, but we never got that. And then this is another good thing. And then we're also supposed to have like Inferno so that we can destroy the other cannons from the other side using cannons that are already there, like regular cannons, not enemy cannons. Here's where we're supposed to use Blizzard, but we can skip it using this cool jump. Oh no, lost my dash, so I'll just restore it real quick. This jump, basically you're supposed to freeze these gears because they're both hot and fast. But we can sort of just barely make all of these jumps if I do it correctly. Yep, we got it. And that saves maybe a couple seconds over using ice to do it. But yeah, we're never going to need to use ice again. I'm going to take this health refill right here just because, for safety. It's the last health refill I'm going to get. That's convenient. Oh, I'm stuck. And this is Oki. We never met Oki, but he's a good boy. So, yeah. He's supposed to be helping us defeat the final boss here. He even says, like, fight together with Oki. And he does this magnificent speech. But we're just going to nuke the final boss, because the devs forgot to make this boss have any sort of invincibility to exorcism slips. And they don't actually have that much health. So we can just kill both of them at the same time with just 5 exorcism slips. It's kind of crazy. And they're dead. It's by far the cheatiest fight in the whole game. That fight is actually quite fun casually, so it is unfortunate that we cheat it that way. But it is definitely better that we do it that way. For the sake of the speedrun. So now that we defeated in air quotes, all of the bosses, this is the Arc of Yamato. It is the source of all evil in Japan. So we're going to go into it. Because this is where the final boss is located. And then, in that cutscene, I didn't see it, but Isun falls off the bridge. So now we don't have Isun anymore, which, thank goodness. Isun was a real pain. Think of all that time that I could have saved mashing start. If only Isun would shut his mouth. So this is like a ghost dude from heaven. We're going to buy some nukes from him, because yes, he's also a weapons trader. And I'm going to actually do these bosses in a bit of a unusual order. Normally you do them from right to left, but I'm going to do them... not this one. This one. I'm going to do them in order of most to least cheaty. So we're going to start with the cheatiest boss fight here. This is the Crimson Helm. This is the boss of the Gale Shrine, who we ignored earlier, if you remember. When we left Gale Shrine without fighting him, Isun said, we can't ignore Crimson Helm forever. As it turns out, Isun got the last laugh, because we actually do have to fight him right now. So we can't skip this boss rush at all. But as it turns out, he's a big pushover. So we just break his armor, remove his armor with wind, and then fight, and then just nuke him 4 times, and then he's dead. So that's the cheatiest fight we're gonna get here. Not by a whole lot, but it is definitely the cheatiest. Oh yeah, if you want to do a playthrough and show off some of the cool stuff in this run, I'd be happy to help. There's a lot of cool tricks, even a bunch of stuff that we don't actually do in the run. I'll try to demo some stuff after this, if I have time. So, yeah, these ghost people, they're a race of people from the God's realm, from the heavenly plane, called the Celestials. And their only purpose is to talk to us. They're basically lore. So, unfortunately, they slow us down. So this next fight is the first fight we did in the game. This is the Spider Queen. This is the only fight that's actually, like, or one of the only fights that's actually significantly harder. And by significantly, I mean like 50%. Maybe not even 15. It's not really that much harder, because as soon as we open up her belly, just 2 exorcisms just kills her. The reason why she's harder, in quotes, is because we have to use 3 vines instead of 2 to open up her back. And then at the end of each of these, you'll notice I'm positioning myself in a certain way. That's to get closer to the portal that spawns when they die. So you can see I'm right next to it. You actually don't want to stand right inside the portal, because if you're inside the portal where it spawns, it won't work right away. You'll have to get out of the portal and then go back into it, which is quite annoying. So those were the 2 cheatiest fights. Then this one's fairly cheaty as well. This is Blight. This is another fight that we completely skipped. This is the guy who's making everyone sick in Seon. So I don't know if they'll get reprieve from us defeating him here, but they're probably dead by now. That was like an hour ago. And they were dying at a very rapid pace. So this guy, we're supposed to defeat him using the time slowdown ability that we never got, Veil of Mist. But fortunately, he has one attack that actually makes him vulnerable without using slowed time. Which hopefully he'll do right now. Usually it's his second attack. Yep. So he spawns all these swords, and technically his body is the gold sword there. So we're actually going to fight him like a dog. Hit. I might miss my cycle. So I missed those 2 up. No! I just missed it by drawing the Trayvon in the right place. Or in the wrong place. So unfortunately we're going to have to do this 2 cycles. Just because I was too eager to draw the cherry bombs. But we do get to listen to this music a bit more, and it's nice music, so no shame in that. I'm going to just jump over his quick draw attack there. Alright, so there we go. Now he's dead for real. Longer than expected, but not a big problem. And we did lose a fair bit of money there to not doing the fight very well. No, we were inside the trigger. So that's what I mean where if you stand inside the trigger where it spawns, it'll not work. I was just on the edge of it. So there's 2 more fights left. We're gonna go do Ninetales first, because Ninetales is a fairly interesting fight. Yeah, unfortunately this area doesn't have very good music. It's kind of ambient. Now we're going to fight Ninetales again. Ninetales is actually slightly weaker than she was when we fought her in Oni Island. But the strategy is going to be pretty much the same. That's no good. Come on. There we go. here's the last portal. Or, well, not the last. Normally this would be the last boss fight we do in the arc. And now I'm gonna leave the best. I'm leaving the best for last here. This is actually probably my favorite fight in the run, but it's also my least favorite because this one's quite stressful. It's very easy to mess this one up. But we should have all the resources we need. I might want to grab some health, but nah, let's be risky. So this is Orochi. This is actually the first, like, the villain of the first arc of the whole game is this guy, and we're supposed to have fought him twice already. We've actually skipped both fights with Orochi, and we're only going to fight him for the third time. So now he's in his most powerful form. But this fight's interesting because we can't just cheese it out completely. We actually have to do a bit of an interesting strategy here. So we need to get... He's an 8-headed serpent, and we need to get 3 of his heads drunk twice. So we're going to do 3 heads at once. Which you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to do them like one at a time. Focusing here. I can talk too much. So that's the first phase. That's quite an intricate dance you have to do in order to do it correctly. The second phase isn't as intricate, but it is quite risky because there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong. So I'm going to use the Infinity Stone here to make sure I don't run out of ink for this, because we need a lot of it. And we're just running in a circle, getting all the heads drunk in 2 steps. And yes, that appears to have been everything perfect. So that was a perfect Orochi fight. I'm gonna miss showing the last thing, but you can actually jump onto his back as he dies, and then you, like, fall into the void. It's kind of funny. Just for swag, though. So normally you're supposed to get hit on that fight. It's actually quite difficult to avoid it, but I managed to just get lucky. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong there if you don't... like, the timing is quite strict on both phases, so if you mess up the rhythm at all, you can, like, lose over a minute just to that boss fight. And that's why that's the... like, by far the hardest boss fight in the entire run. There's just so much stuff you have to keep in mind in order to not lose time. Whereas in the other fights, yeah, maybe you, like, miss a cherry bomb or something, but it's not a big deal. So we can't actually run straight into the portal right now. This is the portal to the final boss. We actually have to get some supplies, because guess what? The devs made a common mistake. This guy will give me a break here. They have neglected to, you know, give their final boss any form of immunity to their screen nuke item. So we're just gonna screen nuke this final boss here. So the source of all evil in Japan is a guy named Yami. And by guy, I really do mean a giant ball. So, I left Orochi as the last fight in the boss rush, because Yami is a bit of a pushover. I love this music, by the way. I'm going to quiet down in a few seconds just to let you enjoy it. But the fight itself is not particularly engaging. We're actually getting all of our powers back here. Because at the start of the fight in the cutscene, he steals them from me. So listen to this. So he has 5 phases, and we're going to nuke every single one of them to death. The gist is that, like, each phase we just need to use a certain number of slips at certain times in order to get our powers back. But because this fight is pretty auto-scrollery, I wanted to use this as an opportunity to thank a lot of the people who've helped this game come this far, and helped me come this far, because if you didn't already know, I'm the world record holder for this category. This run has undergone a huge number of changes in the past in the past year, or in the past half year even. So it started with city checkpoint skip. That was the first major skip that was discovered in a while, and that was discovered by the Japanese runner Tsunakan, who held the record before I did. So you can imagine that trick is quite hard, and he sort of discovered it without anyone knowing it was even possible. So that was a lot of work on his part. Beyond that, Tsunakan also did a lot of work because he discovered a trick that I didn't make much note of when we did it, which is early fire burst, which is when we got this ability. The infinity sign that makes a burst of fire. So before that point, we'd actually known about fire tablet skip, but you actually need to do early fire burst in order to do fire tablet skip and still save time in this particular route. So it's only thanks to Khan discovering both of those skips that we got this run, which is so fast. And of course, you don't do either of those skips in the beginner's route because they're both quite difficult. But then I can't really give all the credit to Tsunakan because there's so many tricks in this run that are a bit more minor that were discovered by Giant Cookie Jar, who's been in chat for part of this. Giant Cookie Jar, he was originally a runner of the New Game Plus categories of this game, but he decided to try out New Game only quite recently, and he discovered a huge number of tricks in that time that have cut off over, I would say, like 7 to 8 minutes off the entire run, and this is not that long of a run, so it's quite impressive. So he discovered things like Nechku skip, as well as a bunch of more minor skips in like Waku Shrine and other dungeons. And then there's a bunch of other minor tricks that have been discovered by various people. I'm just gonna list some names of people I think have helped me, whether or not they've discovered anything particular to the route. Critical Sid was actually the world record holder when I first started running, back in, I think, June. He hasn't been running this game recently, but he is going to be running Sonic Colors at AGDQ 2020, so be sure to tune into that. He's a great runner. Then there's also Prino Teeter, who's helped me. He helped me learn CC Skip, among other people, and he's a runner that's sort of been taking a break recently, but he's still doing great work. Drifting Pancake, who's been in chat as Z-Lamp, and some other people have also done some great work. I'm running out of ideas of who to name. Oh yeah, Kinnan. Kinnan has helped me out a bunch. I don't think he ever held the record, but he was one of the highest ranking runs prior to me joining. So this is the final phase of Yami. There we go. There we go. Almost messed up the final phase of the final boss fight. So this music here that plays here is The Sun Rises. It is your theme. Once we've made Yami vulnerable, we're literally just going to nuke him 12 times. It's that simple. So time is coming up, not here, but in a couple seconds. Or like in a... I'll say when. It's when the results screen appears. So a couple skips and time. So time doesn't particularly matter because this game is timed by in-game time. And you actually got quite a good time here today. 2:32. That is actually still the second ranking time on... like, if I wasn't already the world record holder, this would be the second best time on the leaderboards. The world record right now is low 228, 228.07 to be specific. So despite all of the shenanigans I went through, and all of my distraction commentating, this run actually went quite quick.
Yeah, it was a very enjoyable run, and
Yeah.
I may have started the timer 5 to 10 seconds early.
Oh, that's no problem.
Right at the beginning.
Like
Just
I said, it's in-game time, so... personally, when I run, I actually use an auto-splitter to automatically find all the correct splits and time things correctly. And that one is image-based, so I can even use it on the Switch. But there's also a PC-based auto-splitter for this game, which has different splits available. If I have some time, and you wouldn't mind, I'd like to actually show off a couple tricks.
Let me just check the schedule quick. Oh yeah, we've got time for some trick show off.
Okay, so unfortunately, like I said, this game, the programming is quite good. There's very few state bugs. There's like no memory bugs or anything, but there are a few, and I can show off two of them. And the reason why you haven't seen these already is, despite them being reasonably powerful, they're also not. They just happen to not ever come in handy in any of the main categories, at least in any new game category. So the first one I want to show off is a pretty minor trick here. You're not going to see any of the cool results of it because this trick's a bit of a tragedy. This is called walking while talking. I'm going to show it off. And the thing about this trick is that it's very powerful, but only in specific circumstances, and none of the places where you can set it up quickly are also places where you can actually use its consequences. So this is the easiest way to set it up, just to test it. So as it turns out, when you're in Cursed Kusa, Isun will talk to you as soon as you let go of the brush. But you can actually interrupt Isun by talking to the shopkeeper. If I do it with the correct timing. Yes, there we go. So now I can move around even while I have menus up. So if I talk to this guy, I can now get this menu up while I'm walking around. And this menu has a few consequences. Mainly it lets me shop from anywhere, but it also lets me like walk around during cutscenes or while talking to people. Now, unfortunately, like the way you can get cool stuff out of this is by doing things like feeding animals or going fishing. But neither of those things are possible in Kusa Village, where is one of the only easy places to set up walking while talking. The only interesting thing I can really show off with this right now without having to set up the glitch again is if I talk to this person, or in fact if I talk to basically anyone, you can see now I have her text stored. And also, as if I like move around, Ami will face away, like she'll turn automatically to the girl. So if I like, oh well, now I canceled that state, but normally like Ami will curve around to the girl, which is kind of interesting. But if I stay away from this girl, you'll notice I've been staying quite near her. If I move physically away from her, this happens. Yeah, so there's a few ways you can crash the game quite quickly. I actually did a meme run once where I just tried to crash the game from the start. And that took me about 6.5 minutes, and I think it's possible to do it in under 6 minutes from starting a new file. Because you can actually set up walking while talking in Kamiki Village as well. I just don't have a good save for it. So the next thing I want to show off is another glitch. And I actually made a save specifically for showing off this glitch. This isn't a practice save. So I'm going to boot into the game real quick. And we're going to load a save from a segment that we skipped. So if you remember correctly, I described normally to get to to get to Waku Shrine, you're supposed to go to 100 years in the past. and that involves going through like a spirit gate that takes you to like the original legend. So like the story of this game is that Amaterasu is actually the reincarnation of the White Wolf Shiranui, who saved the world from Orochi 100 years in the past with the help of this guy on my back, whose name is Nagi, although he's in a dress right now. That's not easy to explain. So this is the Moon Cave. This is actually one of the dungeons you're supposed to do. It's supposed to be the third dungeon you do. We skipped it normally. But this is actually the second time. This is actually the Moon Cave 100 years in the past. So it's not quite the same dungeon. You don't actually go through the whole dungeon a second time, which is convenient. And then this is Shinshu Field 100 years in the past. So you can see a lot of the areas are sort of blocked off by haze. But that's not too important. Like this is where we would have gotten the wanted list. Over there would have been Tama's house where we got Cherry Bomb. But there's a glitch in this game where when you enter an area, the game has to set your respawn points. Since normally like when you drown or like fall into a void, the game tries to put you the last place you were on like solid ground. So it sets your respawn point and it leaves it there when you jump. However, if you jump on the first frame of entering an area, the game will actually fail to properly reset or to properly set your respawn coordinates, and they default to 000, or the origin point of the map. And that origin point could be anywhere, it just depends on what map you're in. So if I got it correctly, if I mashed fast enough, we should see some pretty trippy stuff right about now, but I might have failed it. It's a frame-perfect trick, and yeah, I got it. So it's a frame-perfect trick. So now, I'm actually underneath the map. You can see the map is way over there. That's the underside of it. And this is a soft lock, so the main reason I want to show it is for a reason you'll see in a second. So I should probably warn you. Photosensitive epilepsy warning. There's going to be some bright flashing colors. So I'll give you guys a second to tune out now. But, so you don't mind that. We have to fall for quite a while, and then this happens. So the colors get all trippy, and if we use brush powers here, they have weird effects. So like if I use, this is a bonus power we get, but it like hazes up the whole screen. This might not play well with Twitch compression. But there's a bunch of, like every power has a weird display here. Another, like I said, this is a soft lock, so we could never demonstrate this in a run. But there are places where this trick, Origin Warp, where you cause the game to fail to set respawn coordinates, could be useful. Here's a fun one. I like that one. That's another one. All kinds of funny colors. There are places where Origin Warp could be useful, but none of them happen to be useful in this run. I did recently discover a trick that requires Origin Warp that would save about 2 minutes in the longest category of this game, which is Top Dog. That category requires you to get every achievement, so it obviously means you'll be visiting more areas and you get more chances to actually make use of tricks like this that are very situational. But unfortunately, yeah, we don't get too many chances in the regular run. So that's all I really wanted to show off. I'm soft locked here. There are a couple other tricks I could show off, but none of them would be particularly interesting. So I'm going to say goodbye for now. Thank you all for tuning in. If you have any interest in running this game in any of the categories, don't be afraid to stop by the Okami Speedrunning Discord, which you can find linked from the Okami Speedrun page, or speedrun.com page. So speedrun.com/Okami. This particular category, like I said, you can run it on any of the modern versions, any of the 2017 and later releases, and they're all super easy to find. So like they're $20 MSRP, and you can find them on sale often, depending on the platform. If you, even if you don't want to do the speedrun, this game is actually amazing casually. I spent like 50 hours playing it my first run through, and I had a great time. So even if you feel a bit spoiled by some aspects of it, I really didn't go over the story too well there. I completely made up some stuff about Amazon Prime and Evil Rao being a furry, so if you want to know the actual story, which is actually quite a lot more interesting, please check it out. It's a great game. Strongly recommended.
The actual story is Prime Now shipping.
Oh.
No. Yeah, thanks for the run a ton. This game's always great to watch.
Thank you. And here we're gonna die.
but we're gonna respawn. So this is what the extra life looks like. I never actually showed it off in the run, but that's just a minor detail. So, that's it. Thank you all for tuning in.